Why does your awakening feel like loss? It's a question that catches many seekers mid-breath, as if overnight the things that used to steady you begin to slip away. Old ambitions, familiar conversations, certain friendships, the neat scripts you used to play. In the spirit of Krishnamurti's observations about attention and conditioning, I want to walk with you through why this happens, what it actually means, and how to move with integrity through the strange wilderness that follows. Imagine the caterpillar. For a long time, it lives by one set of rules: eating, crawling, following the light as best it can. Then something breaks open. The body rearranges. The old way of moving becomes impossible. There is a period of raw vulnerability inside the chrysalis, where much that was familiar dissolves before anything recognizable appears. Or think of a lobster. To grow, it has to shed its shell and be soft and exposed for a time. Both images point to one truth. Growth often requires loss, because what must die is not always evil, but simply whatever no longer serves the new horizon of life. This is the first key. Awakening is a metamorphosis, and metamorphosis looks like loss. You might already have felt this. You wake up on a weekday and your old goals, promotion, prestige, the comfortable storyline you've been rehearsing since your 20s suddenly taste like dust. You sit with family at a table and the same jokes, the same shorthand now feel distant. You laugh because you don't want to hurt anyone, but inside you notice a quiet misalignment. At work, you find yourself distracted by a different kind of attention, noticing how people move through their roles as if they were costumes. Friends may call you aloof, your partner may accuse you of changing, and you may begin to feel alone in a room full of people. These are not rare complaints. They are the signature marks of a perception shift. This is the diagnosis. Awakening often separates you from the patterns that once bound you. If this resonates and you want more reflections like this one, consider subscribing and staying with these conversations on awakening and practice. That's the only CTA here, a gentle invitation to come back if this material matters to you. So, why does it separate? In practical terms, awakening alters your relationship to meaning. Before this shift, certain things functioned as signposts. Money meant security. Titles meant worth. Routine meant belonging. Awakening loosens those signposts. It does not necessarily replace them with a new map that fits neatly into the old world. Rather, it exposes the way those maps were made, by habit, fear, and the social agreement to call certain things important. When that fabric peels, you don't immediately find a new garment to wear. Instead, you find a rawness, the seeing of what has been accepted without examination. This is where the two worlds image becomes useful. On one side is the conventional world, roles, institutions, rights, the constant mutual reinforcement of shared meaning. On the other side is the inner world of direct perception and personal inquiry, attention without the filters of habit, and intimacy with what actually is. You will begin to move between them, sometimes with ease, sometimes like a visitor in a foreign country. The trouble comes when you try to inhabit both fully at once. That split creates a double life, a day-to-day functioning that preserves external relationships, and a private life of heightened attention that cannot be fully expressed without risk. You face choices when this happens. One common path is concealment. You tuck your new perceptions into a private box and continue performing the old script. It's understandable. Social belonging is not trivial. Hiding keeps you safe from immediate upheaval, but it also fractures you. The energy required to pretend, to compartmentalize, to edit your truth at every family dinner is corrosive. You may feel guilty or hollow, and your relationships may grow brittle without your full presence. Another route is abrupt disclosure. You lay everything on the table, declaring your inner changes to everyone in a blaze of honesty. This can be freeing when done with skill and care, but it can also be destructive when it disregards others' readiness. Loved ones might feel threatened, embarrassed, or fearful. Practical obligations, jobs, children, shared finances, don't vanish because your perceptions shift. Radical transparency without responsibility can create real harm, even when your intention is sincere. There is then a third way, and this is the middle path I want to emphasize. A steady, ethically grounded integration that honors truth without abandoning compassion or duty. This middle way is not sentimental compromise, it's discernment. It asks you to practice patience with others and with yourself, to bring honesty in measures that are respectful, and to hold grief for what is lost while continuing to show up in life's practical commitments. Part of the heartache of awakening is that the people closest to you may not have the language or openness to hold your change. They may interpret it as judgment, withdrawal, arrogance, or simply oddness. Some will pull away because your new priorities disturb their equilibrium. Others will try to fix you by normalizing your behavior. Jokes, advice, and explanations designed to make you fit again. These responses can sting, and they can induce self-doubt. You worry, have I become a problem? Am I responsible for the rupture? It helps to reframe loss less as punishment and more as necessary shedding. Loss here is often the dropping of illusions. Illusions about who you must be to belong. Illusions about what will finally satisfy. Illusions that conditioned responses are your identity. In that sense, the loss is an invitation to live more lightly and more honestly.
But an invitation does not mean the passage will be easy. You might grieve the lifestyle, the reputation, the ease of social acceptance. Grief is a natural companion in this season. It deserves to be named and honored, not bypassed. Krishnamurti, in his way, urged attention to what is, attentiveness that is not colored by the past. In the spirit of his teaching, one useful practice is simple observation without immediate action. Notice how your tastes have changed. Observe the pull toward withdrawing or toward grand gestures. See when you are tempted to judge others for staying where they are. This attention is neither complacent nor combative. It is a clear lens that allows you to act from a steadier ground. It helps prevent two liabilities: the accumulation of a secret life that drains you, and the quick leap into spiritual posturing that isolates you through arrogance. Let's be practical. Here are a few grounded steps you can take when awakening feels like loss. First, create small authenticity habits. You don't have to announce a revolution to everyone you know. Start by offering one honest statement a week in a safe relationship. I've been thinking about different things lately. Or, I need some time to reflect after our conversation. Those small disclosures build integrity. They reduce the load of concealment while allowing others space to adapt. Second, keep your responsibilities. If you have work, children, or obligations, maintain them with care. In doing so, you honor the relational and pragmatic realities of life, and you practice grounding your interior shift in the world. This is part of the ethical middle way, being truthful internally while being reliable externally. Third, tend your grief. Allow yourself rituals of letting go. Journaling, rites of farewell, symbolic acts like clearing out objects that no longer resonate. Grief is not a failure. It is the heart's way of making room. Fourth, cultivate non-judgmental curiosity toward those who haven't shifted. Remember, your awakening is not the measure of others' worth or progress. Compassion is a discipline here. People defend their maps because those maps have kept them safe. Meeting them with patience is a powerful spiritual practice. Fifth, seek resonant company. New companions often arrive slowly. A book that opens a door. A teacher who listens without agenda. A stranger at a retreat who says something you needed to hear. These connections can provide the mirrors and holding space necessary for integration. They don't have to be dramatic. Sometimes a steady meditation group, a small circle of friends who read with you, or a therapist who understands transpersonal transitions will suffice. Sixth, practice attention, not as an abstract technique, but as daily presence in small moments. Washing dishes with complete attention, listening to someone without preparing your response, noticing the tension in your chest when old narratives rise.
Krishnamurti emphasized the clarity that attention brings. When attention is sincere, the old scripts lose their automatic hold. Now, a caution: do not romanticize suffering. The dark night of the soul names a phase of deep disorientation that many experience. It can be lonelier than you imagined and sometimes frightening. If you feel overwhelmed, disoriented in ways that interfere with functioning, consider supportive resources: a trusted counselor, a supportive community, or a clinician who respects spiritual experience. Asking for support does not negate your awakening. It enables it to become integrated rather than unmoored. Let's return to the lobster and caterpillar for a moment, because those images also point to timing. Shedding takes time. The lobster is soft for a while before the new shell hardens. The butterfly's wings dry before it can fly. In those liminal hours, you are more exposed to weather and predators, metaphorically speaking. You learn tenderness with yourself, practical patience, and the economy of taking only what you truly need with you. The impulse to rush the process, to force others to understand immediately, or to prove your insights often creates more resistance. Slow, steady alignment invites resilience. You may fear that loss means you will never belong again. That fear is real and deserves acknowledgement. Belonging often changes shape. The old forms of intimacy may fall away, and new ones will not necessarily appear on the same timetable. But belonging is not only about sameness, it's about resonance. People who meet you where you are and reciprocate authenticity. Over time, circles of resonance do form. Some are small and intimate, others are looser networks of shared practice. These communities are not automatic. They are grown through mutual vulnerability, shared ritual, and service. They do not replace the people you loved before, but they offer different kinds of reciprocity. A hopeful truth: your presence can catalyze growth in others. Sometimes the very way you live, steadied by attention and compassion, becomes a silent teaching. You may find loved ones gradually shifting because they see you suffer and speak with honesty, or because the way you respond to life's small troubles models something new. This is not manipulation, it is the natural influence of an embodied life. Be patient with this ripple effect. Change rarely looks like a dramatic conversion. It more often shows up as new questions, awkward attempts, and eventually deeper conversations. Avoid two traps along the way. The first is spiritual pride, believing that having a different perception makes you superior and kills curiosity. The second is self-abnegation, denying your experience so completely that you fall back into the safety of performance. The middle way refuses both extremes. It invites a steady humility. I see differently. I may be wrong about some things. I will be kind while remaining truthful. Practical practices that embody this middle path include staying rooted in daily routines that honor both realities. Continue with work tasks, tend relationships, and keep up with community obligations, while carving out regular time for silent attention, reflection, and study. Keep a small practice of honest speech, moments when you speak what you observe without blame or sermonizing. Learn the art of the question. Rather than telling someone they are asleep, ask them, "How do you find meaning these days?" Questions open spaces, conclusions close them. What about teachers and texts?
Draw on teachers as companions, not authorities. Krishnamurti himself invited people to test observations directly, not to take his words as doctrine. Use books, talks, and communities as aids to attention, not as final destinations. Be selective and generous at the same time. Read widely, but don't cling to any single interpretation. Let ideas serve your practice rather than your identity. One temptation is to expect that awakening will streamline your life into constant peace. That's not accurate. Awakening deepens sensitivity. With that sensitivity comes new vulnerabilities and fresh responsibilities. You may feel grief for what's been undone and joy in what's newly possible. Both can coexist. The mark of mature integration is the capacity to hold paradox, to feel loss and gratitude simultaneously, to be tender and clear, to remain devoted to care while refusing to obey old blind imperatives. Remember the practicalities of safety and dignity. If your shift threatens financial stability, plan carefully. If strong reactions from family members escalate into coercion or abuse, prioritize safety and seek appropriate support. The middle way is not an excuse for passivity. It is the stance of someone who embodies responsibility while being truthful. Do not use awakening as a reason to abandon dependence or obligations. Finding a way to align internal changes with external necessities is part of the work. There is a long-term consolation worth naming explicitly. What appears as loss is often the pruning that allows deeper roots. When branches that once bore only brittle fruit fall away, new growth can sprout in unexpected directions. You may find your relationships becoming simpler and truer, focused more on presence than on performances. Conversations may be fewer but more honest. Your choices may narrow, but the life that remains can be more aligned with what genuinely matters. As a short reflection to close this contemplation, sit for a moment and bring to mind one thing you thought you needed that now feels hollow. Hold it without judgment. Breathe. See what emotions arise: grief, relief, curiosity, fear. Offer yourself a small act of care in response: a walk, a phone call with a friend who listens, a cup of tea with attention. These are simple practices, but they steady the body while the edges of your life shift. If this reflection has offered you something useful, I invite you to share your experience in the comments below, or explore the playlist on awakening we've curated. It contains gentle, Krishnamurti-inspired resources and practical guides for integration. And finally, the last consoling thought. Loss in the service of truth is not a verdict, but a process. You are not failing when familiar things fall away. You are, often painfully and tenderly, learning how to live from a clearer seeing. Trust attention. Trust kindness. Keep showing up.